Rangering. No state in the Union was ever called upon to meet and deal with the criminal element as was Texas. She was border territory upon her admission to the sisterhood of states. An area equal to 4 ordinary states and a climate that permitted outdoor life the year round made it a desirable rendezvous for criminals. The sparsely settled condition of the country, the flow of immigration being light until the 70s, was an important factor. The fugitives from justice of the older states with a common impulse turned toward this empire of isolation. Europe contributed her quota, more particularly from the South, bringing with them the mafia and vendetta. Once it was the Ultima Thule of the criminal Western world. From the man who came for not building a church to the one who had taken human life, the catalogue of crime was fully represented. It was seen a breach of good manners to ask a man his name, or what state he was from, or to examine the brand on his horse very particularly. Some of these fugitives from justice became good citizens, but the majority sooner or later took up former callings. Along with this criminal immigration came the sturdy settler, the man intent on building a home and establishing a fireside. Usually following lines of longitude, he came from other southern states. He also brought with him the fortitude of the pioneer that reclaims the wilderness and meets any emergency that confronts him. To meet and deal with this criminal element as a matter of necessity soon became an important consideration. His only team of horses was frequently stolen. His cattle ran off their range, their earmarks altered, and brands changed. Frequently it was a band of neighbors, together in a posse, who followed and brought to bay the marauders. It was an unlucky moment for a horse thief when he was caught in possession of another man's horse. The impromptu court of emergency had no sentiment in regard to passing sentence of death. It was a question of guilt, and when that was established, Judge Lynch passed sentence. As the state advanced, the authorities enlisted small companies of men called rangers. The citizens' posse soon gave way to this organized service. The companies, few in number at first, were gradually increased until the state had over a dozen companies in the field. These companies numbered anywhere from 10 to 60 men. It can be said with no discredit to the state that there were never half enough men for the work before them. To the ranger, then, is all credit due for guarding this western frontier against the Indians and making life and the possession of property a possibility. On the south was to be met the bandit, the smuggler, and every grade of criminal known to the code. The ranger had no equal. The emergency that produced him no longer existing, he will never have a successor. Any attempt to copy the original would be hopeless imitation. He was shot at short range, oftener than he received his monthly wage. He admired the criminal that would fight and despised one that would surrender on demand. He would nurse back to life a dead game man whom his own shot had brought to earth and give a coward the chance to run any time if he so desired. He was compelled to lead a life in the open and often descend to the level of the criminal. He had few elements in his makeup and but a single purpose. But that one purpose, to rid the state of crime, he executed with a vengeance. He was poorly paid for the service rendered. Frequently there was no appropriation with which to pay him. Then he lived by rewards and the friendship of ranchmen. The ranger always had a fresh horse at his command. No one thought of refusing him this. Rust-proof, rugged, and tireless, he gave the state protection for life and property. The emergency had produced the man. The Rangers strove tirelessly for the redemption of this state from crime and lawlessness. Yet, in the village burying ground of Round Rock, Texas, is a simple headstone devoid of any lettering save the name Sam Bass. His long career of crime and lawlessness would fill a good-sized volume. He met his death at the hands of Texas Rangers. Years afterward, a woman, with all her delicacy and knowing the odium that was attached to the man's career, came to this town from her home in the north and sought out his grave. As only a woman can, when some strong tie of affection binds, this woman went to work to mark the last resting place of the wayward man. Concealing her own identity, she performed these sacred rites, clothing in mystery her relation to the criminal. The people of the village would not have withheld their services in well-meant friendship, but she shrank from them, being a stranger. A year passed, and she came again. This time she brought the stone which marks his last resting place. The chivalry of this generous people was aroused in admiration of a woman that would defy the calumny attached to an outlaw. While she would have shrunk from kindness, had she been permitted, such devotion could not go unchallenged. So she disclosed her identity. She was his sister. Bass was Northern-born, and this sister was the wife of a respectable practicing physician in Indiana. She was womanlike, and her love for a wayward brother followed him beyond his disgraceful end. With her own hands she performed an act that has few equals, as a testimony of love and affection for her own. For many years afterward she came annually, her timidity having worn away after the generous reception accorded her at the hands of a hospitable people.